Good morning.
Ready?
Good morning. Yes, sir. We're live.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Gullah House Show. This is Roderick Gass, also known as Baba Kimo, along with my co-host from Sierra Leone, West Africa, Chief Mansa Fode Ajamu.
Yes, sir. What's up, cuz? How you doing?
I'm good, man. We wanted to welcome everybody to the show. If you can, check out our web pages, the Gullah Leone web page and the Ganona web page. Chief, go ahead and tell them about our Tools and Seed campaign, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, the Gullah Nation of North America has been doing Tools and Seeds Farmers Assistance Projects here in Sierra Leone, trying to get something popping over there in Orangeburg real soon, at least a little garden, something for the community to grow some fresh fruits and just engage the young people in it. Here in Sierra Leone, we're actually planning to farm in two different villages this year, two different chiefdoms. So we've actually expanded. In the new village, we'll be starting smaller than the last village, but we're also introducing machinery now, so it won't be a lot of manual labor. We'll try to bring in some tractors and other tools for the people. But those of you out there who really want to support, this is a campaign. We're fighting food insecurity in Sierra Leone, the same place that many of our ancestors were taken away from to grow food products. And we grow more than enough food, but because the way the global system is, we still have a high level of food insecurity and hunger in this country, which leads to malnutrition and other things. So please, we're calling on you guys to spread the word at least. If you ain't got a penny, spread the word. Let people know that we're out here. Gullah Geechee people are out here in Sierra Leone doing what we can to provide food resources to the people. Anybody who's interested can check us out, www.gullahleone.org, and right there you can find how to help out or even join the organization. So, bye.
Okay. Today I'm excited. We have our sister here with us from the Low Country. She's an author. She's a Charleston radio personality. She's Gullah Geechee. She's an Igala princess. I would say her name, but I'll let her say her African name. I don't want to mess it up. But please welcome Sister Lori Johnson.
Yes.
Grace and peace. Greetings.
Hello, my sister. How you doing?
I am doing outstandingly well, eternally grateful for this opportunity to be with my brothers this morning, Chief and Baba.
Greetings, mommy.
Greetings. Go ahead and tell us something about yourself, sister, and how you got involved with the Gullah Geechee and the Igala Nation.
Well, first of all, once again, thank you so very much. It is my divine pleasure to be here with you both this morning. And I greet you with the joy of the Charleston Gullah people. And I am very, very delighted to sit here before you. I will share just briefly that I was born in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
And many people may know be familiar with the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuyvesant, the Bronx, Queens, and all of that good stuff. So my mother was also, here, born in Charleston, South Carolina. My dad also was born here on Edisto Island, South Carolina. Yes, Edisto Island absolutely has, the entire Charleston has a rich history. And let me just back up a minute. As you said, I am a mother. Let me just share a little bit briefly with our listeners and our viewers. And I appreciate you all for your greetings. Those of you coming on and tuning into the show, thank you. I'm going to be speaking about my very most favorite person, once again, which is my grandma. And again, I appreciate that. But I've been in Charleston now for about 40 years. I came, as I said, back in 1980, something like that. So, 3 children, 4 grandchildren. Y'all pray for me because I don't know why I'm being so nervous today. But anyway, we are just gonna. I've been up since day clean, as my grandma would say. Just looking forward to today. And you said, it's just a pleasure to be here once again.
And you know, Mama, it's a day of power in our tradition. We might not give a hell about Eurocentric Easter, but they did. Our ancestors did. They used it as an opportunity to do family. Anytime we could do family, we did family. And so these days have become significant to us despite their origins. What would your grandmother be doing today?
My grandmother would have her big hat on and she would be going to church.
There you go.
Yes,
There you,
yes. As you said, that definitely was a very big tradition. They done start, and it's just a great honor and a pleasure just watching her throughout the years as a little girl growing up. My mother was a school teacher in back in New York, and so because she was a school teacher, she would have 2 months off during the summer. So in that 2 months, she would often come to Charleston because, as she said, her brother was having so many children that she was trying to keep up because she was naming them. And so, like you said, those traditions I was able to see firsthand up front and up close with my grandma. And I always thought, and I know now that it is true, my grandma was royal. To me, she was royalty, and I would often sit at her feet, when my cousins and everyone was outside and they were playing and things like that, because I was always fascinated by how she spoke. The way she spoke, the tone, the accent, how she delivered what she delivered. It was to me just something, and I didn't know when people would talk about Gullah, and now people are even studying the Gullah people and, even teaching it at Yale University, Brother Sun Cho, I think that's Sun Cho,
yes, sir.
teaching it. And so to me, as a young person, it was just a fascination that I had with her and who she was. And even a great grand aunt, her name was Aunt Pigeon. You talk about, if I thought my grandmother was Gullah and royal, my great grand aunt Pigeon was born in 1889. And I had the opportunity, yes, I had the pleasure to be in her presence and to experience some of the Gullah isms, the Africanisms. For me, the Gullah people are a people who are doing their very best to retain their African culture. They're not ashamed of the way they speak. They're not ashamed of the culture of doing things that come so naturally, things that are just embedded in our DNA and our genes, and the excellence that comes from Mama Africa as a whole. It's just phenomenal. And so my grandmother, she really embodied that, and it was something, as I said, that it was an awakening within my spirit, within me, the royalty, because, we did not start at slavery. We were a people interrupted by corrupt and greedy people because of our talents, because of our gifts, because of our abilities, because of our abilities as it related to agriculture, farming, even fishing, things of that nature. We were a thriving civilization that the wealth of our people, being the people, the resources, was stolen, of course, just to build this land. But going back to the Gullah people, now I realize the wealth and the riches of those people. And in my head, I'm thinking that you, Baba Kimo, you asked about my name.
Yes.
And so I don't want to just ramble, but I do want you all to know that, as you mentioned, I do embrace and I do identify with a kingdom that is more than 5,000 years old, known as the Igala Kingdom. And I've been, yes, sir. Thank you. God bless you, Chief. And I identify, embrace, and I am glad to be embraced by the Igala people I have a friend, I'm not a huge historian. However, I love to hear history. I love to hear stories, especially about Mama Africa. And so I have a friend who is an artist, and he embarked on a journey to find the origins of the Gullah people. And it led him to connect with an ambassador over in what's known as Ida, Kogi State, Nigeria. And he and the ambassador, and if the ambassador is watching, I just want to give honor and respect to him as a leader of the Igala Kingdom, and also to our Ata, our king, my spiritual father, Matthew Alaji Opalawu. And we just really, I want to honor them in that moment, and thank you for allowing that. I just want to say to all of the Igala people in the Igala Kingdom, thank you for allowing me the distinct pleasure and honor to represent Igala, the Igala Kingdom here in the United States. So in this journey, my friend and I, Nazar, Abba Nazar, took as a historian himself. He chronicles the history of the struggle of our people to get back to Africa. Many people think that we came here just to work and we were nothing to have, we had nothing of value to offer, but nothing could be further from the truth, because we had a richness to offer what they call this United States. So in that quest for freedom, the African redemptive struggle, there are people, we did our very best to get back to Africa. Of course, we honor the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who really did a lot to get our people in that frame of mind to go back because of the wealth. There's an entire world. The continent of Africa is an entire world of riches. And so I can't be African enough because of that. And to be embraced by a kingdom more than 5,000 years old, whose documented history of struggle, of freedom, the people and the pride of the people there, to me, embodied the Gullah people here. The Gullah people that were brought from the region of West Africa, Chief, you know this, they were the most aggressive in terms of not being able to be remanded to being,
controlled. You couldn't just terrorize. We'll fight back. We'll
resist. A minute.
We'll resist and we'll fight and we'll run away and we'll come back.
Resist and fight. That absolutely was. I'm told my grandfather I'm told that my grandfather on my dad's side, that the clan were afraid of him, and they said on the island of Edisto, there's a story. My great grandfather was enslaved on what's known as William Seabrook Plantation. My great grandfather, honored to the ancestors, and there's still a lot of my father's family on the island of Edisto to this day. I can remember listening to Henry Louis Gates, also known as Skip Gates, and he has the Finding Your Roots segment. And I remember watching him once, and he was talking about the people on Edisto that were being held on the plantation, the Seabrook Plantation. And when the Union Army came in and they wanted to burn down the plantation, those enslaved there at that time said, please, we don't have anywhere to go. Allow us to stay. And as he is saying this, I remember screaming at the TV, you're talking about my people. You're talking about my great, my great grandfather and the people there. And so that's just a little piece I wanted to add in terms of, the richness on both my maternal and paternal side, for the Gullah people on Edisto. They were definitely remarkable people. My grandfather was he made nets, fishing nets. He was also the Iceman. Back in the day, they had the big blocks of ice and they would go up and down, taking them to put in people's coolers and things like that. So there's so much in the Gullah history that I have to be proud of, and the shoulders that I have to stand on. When I was embraced by this kingdom of more than 5,000 years old, it was absolutely an honor to me, because we look at European kingdoms and the European, like the royal families with the Megans and the,
Yeah.
Markle and, those folks. But we as Africans, we have our own kingdoms to be proud of as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And when I learned of this, I says, wow, how much more should we be lifting the stories of those kingdoms and the people that are still in Nigeria, in those areas to this day, that are doing their very best to reach out to the diaspora, to the people who originated and came from Mama Africa. We know Mama Africa is the birthplace of civilization. That's no question about it. The very first
No doubt.
continent, Ethiopia, the very first place mentioned in the book we call the Bible in Africa. So there is a wealth and a vastness in this area that I look to my grandmother, and I accredit her, because when I first moved here, I'm probably going to tell my age, but that's all right. I'm grateful to be here. When I graduated high school at 19 and I moved here, I would always, my mom would always say, we're going to move there 1 year. We'll stay there 1 year. But because I always loved being in the South, it was just something in me, within me, that said, that just called to my spirit. This is who you are. This is where you belong. I never really felt like I fit into the concrete jungle of New York. Although New York has so much to offer, it does. I just never really felt very comfortable there like I felt while I was here during the summers with my grandmother, with my cousins who were all born here, and just as Gullah as you can believe,
That's right.
And the language that they spoke, it just always drew me in, and I always wanted to stay here and remain here. So when I realized my mom was never going to move here, she would always say, oh, one day we're going to move there. 1 year we'll move there. And when I realized that that wasn't going to happen, and I got of age, and I realized, I can move myself. I can go. And of course, my royal Gullah grandmother opened her arms, her home to me. And I'm here to this day, and love, absolutely love being here. So again, back to the culture, the Igala name is Ufedoojo, means the love of God. Ufedoojo, the love of God. Agula means he or she who remains shall never go astray. To that, it said to me that I will be steadfast, unmovable, and always abounding in this work.
Say that.
Work of bringing people back to the kingdom, to the light of who we are, the source. We are the source, right? And I believe that we are the answer to this world's problems today. Africa has an authority that we as African people have to understand and embrace ourselves. The unity is so very important among us as Africans today. Now, I know that our people were very innovative people. They knew how to travel even before this Columbus said he discovered this America. So our people knew how to come and go way before he even did. So I know that there are many people identify here as Black American Indians, or I don't want to get into that too deep, but they came before Columbus. We did. We came before Columbus, which is a great book I have right here somewhere. And if I can encourage people, I know a sister said, I want to see that show you talk about your people, because those are my people. So no matter where we are, we may have left this area and migrated and found ourselves in many different parts of the country. But home is always where your heart is and where your start is.
That's right. That's right.
Your heart and your start. And so I really am grateful for this opportunity to be a part of the Gullah House, which
That's right.
that just felt natural to me. The Gullah House. I should talk about the Gullah people on the Gullah
Come on
House.
in. Come on in. You're welcome here.
I feel
Um,
so very much at home.
absolutely. You said so much. You said so much, and you could keep going because it's genuine. You're actually channeling. You're really bringing back memories and the emotions of being chosen. Um, I grew up. I was born in Pennsylvania and grew up in the North, and traveled to South Carolina to visit my grandmother all the time with my mother growing up. Um, so you talking about that? I'm still holding this cola. My hand is heating up
Mm,
because
mm,
it's like my cousin Baba Kimo. He's born in Orangeburg, but he grew up in New York too. He was in Brooklyn with you,
mm,
Yeah,
you
Brooklyn
know.
and the Bronx.
And so as a diaspora of the South Carolina Gullah Geechee people in New York and Pennsylvania, we find ourselves like living in another country, and people don't understand that too much.
mm,
So when we're in the corridor, when we are down there, we feel like, okay, we in Africa almost, like we're where our spirit connects in that land. And so it's like when you talk about reconnecting with the Igala Kingdom, I mean, like when I came here, I connected back with the Mandinka people. I've been connecting people from our nation with their people here, so I understand the significance of being that ambassador. You know, being that model, embodying that, so people after us can see it and model themselves after that. Um, we've never been in this moment of history before. Our grandparents wasn't here. Our parents wasn't here. It's us. And so just everything you talked about, and shout out to the ambassador as well of the nation. Me and him had some great conversations. Very um, intelligent and knowledgeable historian of his people. And that's what's very important because he was commissioned by the king himself
yes.
to go out and represent and correct the history and tell people the official account from the palace, not from the book. And
Mhm, mhm,
to see that that's it's real energy, it's not false. You know, a lot of people get carried away with meeting people online and things like that, but when it's
mhm.
official,
Yes.
when
Mm,
you see it and you know it, and it matches what you know you've been looking for, then you found home. You spoke about feeling African, the African within, and we always took Africa with us. Those intangibles never were stripped from us,
mhm.
you know, and we still have them. It's the reason why we can put all differences aside and come here today and say there really is no difference bigger than our unity. You know,
Ashe.
our diversity confuses us sometimes, and I really appreciate you. I appreciate your story as well. I want to ask you,
Mhm, mhm,
in Georgia, in Florida, South Carolina right now, in Charleston right
mhm,
now.
mhm.
Um, I talked to Brother Nazir. I just had an opportunity to say hello to him. I've been,
Good,
I watched for a while before we finally get to say hello.
good.
But
Mhm,
I really admire his art. He is dynamic artist, and
mhm,
one of the ways that people come in contact with our culture the most is through our art. So I wanted to ask, is the Igala Nation in the USA actually have any plan to do any touring, any
mhm,
homecomings back to the Igala Nation, um, bringing people home? Because there's so many of us that are taking DNA tests. It's saying
mhm,
Nigeria, it's saying Yoruba, it's saying Igbo. But when you hear the knowledge of who the Igala Nation is, it's like, oh,
mhm.
hold up, wait a minute. Are we forgetting a very significant group?
Mm,
You understand? Or
yeah.
is this a very key part of the story that's been left out because of how the Westerners tell the story,
Mhm,
of how they interpret the language, of
mhm,
how they encounter the culture? Because if that's the case, then we really need to start journeying home. And so I'm asking, would there be those kind of trips? And is there anything being done in terms of like artistic exchange? Because that is the most powerful way to really start getting the images into the minds of the people en masse.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Chief, because, and I'm so grateful that you and my brother Nazar are connected and have been connecting like that, because it is those things that are going to continue to unite us. And when we look at how these connections are, like, for example, the festivals that are, you know, prominent in Africa, a lot of the harvest festivals and things like this, we definitely, for the very first time, started in 2019. It was the very first time, as an extension of the Igala Kingdom, did what was called the Ocho Festival here in the United States. It got a lot of international publicity that we relived that and revived that festival when we were, you know, from here as Nazar. And you know, I know you pick your own guests and things like that, but I'm sure at some point maybe you all would love to have a conversation to even further expand on this, but to resurrect and to reinstate those cultures and those festivals and the things that, you know, those Africanisms that we were once told to do away with and deny, exactly, be ashamed of. It is definitely something that really is part of us. You talked about the cola nut. You know, when you show your cola nut, it reminds me of something called the hickory nut. The hickory nut used to fall from the trees, right? And it kind of reminds me, but the hickory nut, you know, you peel it off, and it probably looked like that, you know, and it would, you know, at the end when you peel it off, the outer layers. So those kinds of things, the festivals, the yams. My grandma used to.
I wanna teach. I wanna
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, this right here, this cola. It's called cola. It's the same cola that originally got put into the drinks in Europe, the cola, Coca-Colas and all this. It's an energizer. It's natural energizer. It gives you energy. So if you have to work, you might chew on one of these. If you're an older person, you might chew on one of these. It's medicinal, but it also was currency, not only for trade, but also for spiritual reasons. If you go to a spiritualist, you might give them cola. You couldn't get married in this region without this. And so cola, salt, and gold were the three main trade items of the Mali Empire. This region here called the Gullah rainforest. In the Mandinka language, sometimes the K and the G can be interchangeable. That's why you can say Mandingo or Mandinka. The G and the K can be interchangeable. So it's the Mandinka who named this nut and the place where it comes from. So the place is known as the Gullah rainforest, but this is known as the cola nut.
Wow.
And this was currency. This was like gold, like salt in the Mali Empire. Imagine you have 250,000 warriors that chew on this 5 times a day, 3 times a day to keep energy. Imagine how many elders just didn't have energy, man. They up there near the Sahara Desert, and this right here give them some, you know, some jolt, some energy.
Sure.
And so this is something that's from God to man. It doesn't have to be changed. Literally, I can peel it small and bite it and just go. Here in Sierra Leone, they make them into drinks. They have what they call bitter cola drinks. It's so popular, everyone drinks it. But say that I want to marry someone here. They would say, I have to go to their parents. I have to go to their family and present that I want this person for my wife. And then I would have to, what they call in Creole, put cola. Put cola means that I would literally give cola to the family as well as other gifts. But this cola is a spiritual giving. It's a completely different, it has a different connotation to it. It carries heat. If you hold it in your hands, it'll heat your hands. Wow. So it's a thing. But yeah, and these cola nuts, I mean, when the Europeans first came here, they was after the cola nuts and the salt. They took over the cola nut trade and the salt trade along the coast. The people never had a long integrated system that was centrally coordinated, but when the European came, they did. So they built the base on an island called Cape Verde. They came here, Sierra Leone, and stole a bunch of the indigenous people, Bulam and Timni, and took them over there. And then they took over the control of the cola trade from like Liberia to Senegal themselves on their ships. And this is how they entered us as traders. They came trading what we already wanted.
Right. Wow. Wow. That's so powerful. And you know, that reminds me, you know, what used to be a big thing is the barter system, you know, the bartering, and like even the cowrie shell. I love cowrie shells, and I had always had an attraction to the cowrie shell and the cola nuts. And because, like I said, that was something when the ambassador, when we were being installed here, the Igala leadership locally, he talked about the cola nuts, and that it was something to be presented, you know, and things like that. So I love that. I love all of that. Once upon a time, I used to be real spooky. If you talk about, you know, like any kinds of rituals or things of honor, presenting, and how we do libations and things like that, you know, I would shy away from that. And I think it was a religious thing. But I love hearing how important that was, because the things of nature, the things that you grow, and all of that is a powerful thing because of the properties that those things you get from nature, from naturally, that nature produces, you know, is just a powerful thing. I remember life everlasting tea. My grandma would go in that field and get that life everlasting tea. If you were sick,
that's right,
you drink that.
That's right.
And whatever ailed you, you didn't have it anymore. And so we have to get back to learning the power of agriculture. My grandmother would go into the field from the early morning to the evening. She grew sugar cane. She grew okra. She grew watermelon. She grew corn. I remember as a little girl running through the corn stalks, running up and down through the corn stalk. And she snapped beans, get that big white tub on you, and we sit there and snap those beans.
Doing it with them.
Right there with it. And I just listening to her and just, you know.
That's how I grew up.
That's how you grew up, Bobby. You remember that.
Yes.
And those days were so valuable,
you
know. And I love what you're doing, Chief, that you are reviving the agriculture growing. We need to get more of our young people into the crops. I think of George Washington Carver, our, you know, great ancestor, how the peanuts, the plants, and, you know, would speak, and he would get so much from them. You know, of course, we know that things can be, you know, taken the wrong way too, and be used for negative purposes as well. But just as much as things can be used in a negative way, they can powerfully be used in a positive way. So I'm grateful for my grandmother for teaching us, you know, how to work with our hands, sewing, quilting. Remember, you know, the quilting was important as well. So our crafts, you know,
pottery. My grandmother was a big quilt maker. That's what she did. She would hum and sew. That was her thing.
Yes. Yeah. And how about, and you know, in honoring them, another thing my great grandma used to go, she say, when it's thundering, it a thunder.
Be quiet.
Sit down and be quiet. Cut off all the lights. Sit down and be quiet. You know.
That's right.
Right. It had to come up the middle.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. You know, my mother was a preacher, and it used to storm, and we used to get in a circle and sing a song. We used to sing, "The storm is passing over, the storm is passing over." We just keep singing it and rousing up as it goes crazy. And when I start hearing about the history of storms that destroyed Black churches and Black homes in South Carolina, and really that's what destroyed the economy in the 1800s and made our people run away. There was weather aspects. There was storms coming from Mama Africa breaking up South Carolina, breaking up that coastline for a long, long time, creating chaos there. And so somehow, some way, like in my family, there were certain traditions. Like I'll share this with you, right? Let's give you an idea. I've always known my grandmother to be a root worker. Well, since I was a child, that was like the secret in the family. Like it was something that the religious people were ashamed of.
Yes.
And you know, I was never scared of it. I just don't know nothing about it, right?
Right.
But she was known for it. She was infamously known for it and beloved for it in her hometown. So every time we went down there, it was like we was with a powerful person. Everybody knew if I'm her grandkid, they better not mess with me.
Yes.
You know, it was a feeling of protection that my grandmother knew how to have that presence in the community. Like they revered her like that because of what she knew how to do. That was connected to Africa. And what you're saying about growing these foods, I was in a Mende village not long ago here in Sierra Leone, and they have what they call backyard gardens. It's like they do have the large community farms that, you know, a group of people might actually do together, but every house has a backyard garden. They call it backyard. So it's yeah. So when you talk about your grandmother having her little bit of corn, she got her peas over there, she got her cabbage over there, got her collard greens over there, got her tomatoes over there. You know, you can't have a garden without spearmint tea. You got to have tea because that's how you sweeten the medicine. So I grew up being exposed to ideals, and when my mother passed away in 2014,
I'm sorry.
she always wanted us to, when she passed away, cover her body entirely in white sheets and cover everything of hers in her room with white sheets, even the floor. No one should be able to enter that room and open her windows. So it was something that even though she was a preacher, she commanded us to do as her children.
Yes.
When we all knew what to do. This is what you do if I die, and don't let me die in no hospital. So we understood that there was traditions that we were supposed to uphold, not sure where they come from, but it was nothing that came from European culture. And so those are the Africanisms. And for our culture, you know, we read in books, you know, Dr. Lorenzo Doe Turner discovering us like Columbus discovered us here as well, right? Because even Columbus said it was black Caribs and red Caribs. He made a distinction himself.
Yes.
You know, just like they said it was red Indians and black Seminoles. They made the distinctions themselves in their accounts that there was people who qualify in their eyes as black as opposed to red or white. And so it's very important that we always catch them up in their own lives. And like you were saying earlier, realize that we were powerful. If you go back to the kingdom, let's talk about the Igala Kingdom a little bit. What I learned a little bit from the ambassador, the struggles inside, the sacrifices of queens and kings. You know, I heard a story about a queen that sacrificed for her nation. She gave herself up to be sacrificed like a lamb to save her people, because that's what was requested by the ancestors to stop the war, to give them victory. And I'm like, wow, because isn't that the same story we can say about Fannie Lou Hamer? Isn't that the same story we can say about every black woman in America?
Yes.
Y'all been getting crucified and sacrificed right along with us.
Okay.
Sometimes even more brutally.
Yes. I am so grateful you honored the memory of Princess Inipi. Inipi is a story, and it is true. When I heard her story, I was so taken by that. And if I can elaborate on her story even more, when her father contacted the oracle, and the Igala Kingdom and the Benin Kingdom wanted to attack the Igala Kingdom. And so when the oracle was consulted to find out what must be done so that the Igala Kingdom would not be overtaken and destroyed, it came back that his daughter, as you mentioned, would need to be sacrificed. I'm a bit of a school teacher because of my school teacher mom. In case anybody wants to look up Inipi, it's INIK. Inipi. And it is a valuable story because when she saw that her father was distraught after the determination of the oracle, she went to her father and she was like, what is it? What was the answer? And when he couldn't even tell her. So when she found out from the others, the staff, and he said, and they told her what happened, she willingly, she says, I will.
She went
sacrifice.
to him.
She went to that. Now, I remember telling that story to somebody, and they was like, what? Well, when people go off to war, there's no guarantee that they will return home alive. So their willingness to sacrifice for, they say, their country, right? They're in a sense giving their lives. And as you mentioned, our sister, our dear ancestor, Fannie Lou Hamer, and even Dr. King, we just commemorated 55 years of him being assassinated. And I spoke about this on my radio show. I have a radio show. I'll speak about that later. But April the 4th, when he knew April 3rd, he gave that sermon. He says, I may not get there with you, but I've seen the promised land. He knew because of the things, he knew that he wasn't going to make it, but yet he didn't stop. He didn't waver. He went on, he went forward, and he did. He didn't cower. He didn't leave the country and say, oh, even Brother Malcolm. So these are people who knew that their lives were in danger because of what they stood on. And she knew that her beloved Igala Kingdom was definitely something she was willing to sacrifice for. So when the Benin army went to, she was buried alive. And when the Benin army went to destroy the Igala Kingdom, it looked as if the kingdom were on fire, was destroyed. The smoke was everywhere. It looked as if it was just completely eradicated. And in that, they decided to retreat. Well, it's already been destroyed. So that was because of the spirit. That was a supernatural sign, a wonder, and a miracle that took place because of the sacrifice of Inipi, Princess Inipi, that allowed the Igala Kingdom to be saved. So there's a statue of Inipi in the Igala Kingdom in Ida. I'm not sure if it's exactly Ida or where exactly her statue is, but it is a statue erected to the memory and the honor of Princess Inipi because of the sacrifice she gave for her beloved Igala Kingdom. And that's why I'm so grateful and honored to this day to be a representative of the Igala Kingdom. And when the ambassador gave me the distinction of Omo Onyete, I didn't know what Omo Onyete meant. And when I asked him, what does Omo Onyete mean? And he said, Princess, I cried. Because I'll tell this story really briefly. As I was growing up, I always thought my brother's father was my father. I had no reason to believe that he was not. So when I was 13 and I was to meet him for the first time, he and my mother were separated. And when I was 13 and I was to meet him for the first time, to me, his reception was a little cold. And I thought to myself, what kind of way is that to greet a daughter that you've never met before? And all of my years growing up, I always thought of being his little princess, daddy's girl, but I didn't have that. And I said, every little girl ought to have the experience of being just doted over by their father, just, you know what I'm saying? You just the apple of his eye. And Absolutely. So I, knowing that, whatever happened between him and my mother, okay, that happened. But when I heard that we were coming south and we were going to meet him for the first time, I was excited about meeting him. Absolutely. And I thought that the reunion was going to be a great one filled with hugs, love, and tears. But it wasn't that way. He greeted me in a little bit of a cold manner. And I thought, what kind of way is that to greet your daughter that you've never seen before? And when I went in the room and went and sat down and was down, my mom came in and she says, well, I guess I need to tell you that he's not your father. I can't even begin to tell you how that made me feel. And I don't even know if in that moment I asked her, well, you know, I think I thought I fell from the sky or something. I think in that moment I was so shocked that I don't even know if I asked her for a while after that. But anyway, to fast forward, I always felt that I should have been his princess, right? So when I was told that the Omo Onyete distinction, that you will represent us in the United States as Omo Onyete, and he said that means princess, I thought, and my dad had just passed away, right? And I thought, oh, my dad went to ancestral realm and said, King, to
Crown her.
Crown her. That's what I thought. I said, oh, and I was so full. But I'm saying all that to say it was an honor to be named a princess because of the sacrifice of Inipi and because of how great her story was for her people. And to a degree, I feel the same sense of urgency for our people. The survival of our people in the honoring of our culture is so very important. Your culture is who you are. Your heritage, what you value, what you believe in, what you hold dear, that is who you are. And if you have the bandit, the oppressor, he has made us ashamed of ourselves for far too long.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
And the miracles, the signs, and the wonders, if Christians want to say, those are the power gifts. You know, the gifts of the Spirit, they're prophetic gifts. So those are vocal gifts, right? The speaking, the prophecy, the words of knowledge, if you want to put them in the Christianese.
Absolutely.
Right? So the power gifts are the miracles, signs, and wonders of things like what Inipi did and what happened as a result of her giving her life. The Benin Kingdom couldn't attack the Igala Kingdom because it looked like it was already destroyed. That's a miracle. That's a sign that the Almighty is with these people. And it is a relatively small area, Igala land. And so, like I said, there's just so many reasons why I identify, embrace, because they identify and embrace me. But all Africa, there's a vastness, a wealth in all Africa. Africa is like an entire world.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's another world.
It's a whole nother world. And is it over 55 countries or 50? There's over 55.
Yeah, 55 states.
About 54, 55.
54, 55. And the uniting of Africa is imperative to our day to day.
Right.
The great Malana Karenga, Dr. Karenga, who started Kwanzaa, he talks about taking the riches of our civilization, looking to the contributions that we of African descent have made, taking those things. There are cultural, political, social, teaching, education, science. There is so much of a wealth that there is to come from our own African continent that we have to go back. Sankofa is a term, an African term. We have to go back. And the things that the European conditioned us to believe were voodoo, hoodoo, bad, you need to stay away from that. I mean, just the thought of it, just to hear the word voodoo makes you like, ooh. But okay, if you want to call it something else, you know what I think of when I hear that? Remember when Moses, in the story of Moses, and he threw his staff down, and the snakes, exactly. Right? The ones, the others turned into snakes. Moses said, I can do that too. Threw his staff down, and his turned into a snake that devoured the other snakes. You know, and so I think the misinformation that we have had about these powers, our powers, is that these were evil, wicked, and things like that. But when you don't have the kind of firepower that others have, you're going to wish, if you get into a situation, that you had these power gifts that can manifest into a miracle if your life is at stake. if the life of your loved one is at stake? How many times can we tell stories of supernatural deliverance,
Many.
of you hearing, don't go
Many.
on, don't take that trip, don't get on that flight. I remember Brother Anthony Browder saying one time, he told the story of how he was hearing in his spirit. His grandmother said, don't go to Egypt. And he had faithfully been year after year after year going. And he said this one particular year, he kept hearing that his grandmother was in his spirit saying, do not take this trip this year. And the plane crashed. I don't know if you've ever heard that Anthony Browder give that story, but he did. And that was just so powerful that the spirit of his grandmother channeled, came back to him and said, don't take that trip because, and he didn't know why, but when he saw what actually took place. So it is these miracles, it is these signs, and it is these wonders that when we embrace these, if you don't believe in them, if you think it's, a bunch of rubbish and you don't believe your ancestors need to be honored, we don't worship our ancestors, but we give them reverence. We honor their sacrifice. If it were not for our ancestors, we would not even be here. So we have to give reverence to them, to know that someone like an Inipi would be willing to give her life and to do something like that. That's not to be taken lightly. At all. We honor and we know the Most High, the Almighty Creator of all things, who is all around us and with us. We understand the power of who He is. And He has given us the same powers, the same gifts, talents, and abilities, if we receive them and are willing to tap into them. No matter what you call it, however you decide to call it, it is a power and an honor to be able to know and to receive this and this greatness, this wisdom. That, when you feel in your spirit, in your gut, a foreboding, that person. My grandmother used to always talk about spirits, people's spirits. And to this day, I totally get. I used to think it was spooky, having been raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses up until my 30s for protection. I used to think that the protection that she was telling me about, to be aware of people's spirits, test the spirit, the Bible says, understand the people who are around you. And I now understand so very powerfully what she meant. It was like, you, Chief, your wife, you, Baba. I understood how you can be drawn to someone and know by their spirit just what they're about.
Absolutely.
So that's a very powerful gift to have, because sometimes we trust people who mean us no good. And we open up so much to people. And that's how we had been or have been, because I call it Gullah hospitality. And unfortunately, we have received people who have throughout centuries meant us no good.
That's absolutely true. And, one thing I think is so beautiful about the Gullah Geechee identity as it is today is that we're inclusive. We know that we come from so many different origins. We embrace even the fact that we have indigenous Native American ancestry in some of our lineages. And we embrace that without losing our Africanness, without saying, oh, well, that makes us Indians. Oh, well, that makes us, this or that. No, we are what our ancestors named themselves. We're Gullah Geechee people. The terms Gullah or Gola or Gala or Galines or they're all related. We have been on this continent for hundreds and thousands of years, moving throughout the rainforests, the deserts, the lakes, the rivers. We traveled our whole continent. And when we understand that, then we can really get down to knowing that it's truly one African family. We say many roots, one fambo, or one family, and that's really, really what it is. So definitely on behalf of the Gullah Nation of North America, we fully embrace the Igala Nation of Nigeria and the USA, wherever y'all at in the world, because in reality, we're all one.
Yes.
And the culture and the lineage is very important, but the culture is a shared thing. You know, slavery detribalized us.
Mm.
Slavery took what would have been our nationality away from us. It took that. That's the sovereignty that we're still trying to get back.
Mm.
You know, and communicating and opening up doors to talk to the sovereign people of Nigeria. You know, building those relationships with the Igala, with the Igbo, with the Yoruba, that we come back as unifiers. We don't want to take on the old struggles of the old kingdoms. This is a new empire. And so we're global now. And we really have to focus on social development for our people, especially the youngins. They need this knowledge that we're talking about right now. And
Yes.
and so if anything, we put in all the names and things aside, and we're gonna honor the titles that we've been given. I myself, I was chosen by our community, the Gullah Nation of North America, to serve as, paramount chief.
Yes.
Here, I was coronated in recognition of that by the Mandinka people, and I held a title. I became a Mansa, a chief in Mandingo tradition. So I am the kind of brother that fully honors your title because I know it comes with a role. It comes with a responsibility. At times, when things get hard, you can't take that crown off. It's too late. You have to rock that crown. Even when you go to sleep, your crown is on. When you're crying, your crown is on. When your baby needs you, put that crown on. It cannot leave your head again in a spiritual sense. And so we definitely give honor to you. We give honor to the whole Igala Nation, to all the people of Africa. Absolutely. And we declare that there's really no distinction between us. What happened in um, our homeland in exile is that we put our differences aside, and we figured out how what you knew about that leaf could save us all. How what you knew about being a midwife could save us all. How what Baba Rock knew about fist fighting and karate could save us all. So we put our skills and our talents and our identities all together and came up with whoever we are today. And if we say we are Gullah or we are Geechee, and we're all of this, genetically there's a mixture. We are the most African Americans. We have a higher percentage of African genetics than any other identifiable group in the United States of America.
Yes.
And it goes for our culture as well. But at the same time, do you know that we also have the highest percentage of Native American ancestry, and we have the lowest percentage of European ancestry, and so there has been a mixture. But we are African. The word Gullah is from Africa. The word Geechee is from Africa. The people, the knowledge, the culture, the spirituality, everything is from Africa. Experienced in America, applied to America. And so we're a very great people. And it's just been an honor to sit here and talk to you for this hour. I actually want to go on for maybe about 10 minutes over so we can close up properly. It's been amazing hearing you just give us what you got because as some people out there know, like we said earlier, it is Easter. And symbolically, Easter is a day that people commemorate the sacrifice of Jesus Christ in the Bible. But we've had an opportunity to introduce the Gullah Nation of North America to Princess Enigbe. We've been able to tell the story of the inspiration for a whole nation. And and show you that it's not just biblical stories that can inspire us. We have our own stories. We just don't know them. We have our own nations. We just don't know them. And whoever we was when we was in Africa, we became something new when we got to America. And now that we return, we have to manifest that full diversity. I want to go to the Congo. Baba Rock is already hooked up with people in the Congo, family down there. Liberia is my next stop. It's time to move around and start touching the people and start really trying to, take this mission abroad. When we say Gullah Nation of North America, it's because we understand that a nation is a people. And you can't have a cultural heritage corridor if the people don't exist. Can't have a lot of things if we're not a people legally by law in the world, a people that have the same rights as all other people. So it's been great to introduce us back to the Mandinka, back to the Mende, back to the Igala, and begin this process of lineage restoration and, getting back to our own sovereign selves. Like you said, Sankofa. Baba Kimo, do you have anything before we close out?
Yeah. Well, you know what my favorite saying is, Chief. Restoration is in order. That's one of my favorite sayings. And my sister, it's been an experience. I'm just soaking up everything you just said today. It's enlightening. My soul feels it. And I love this. I love this. Chief and I, we've made our connection to Mende people. And like he just said, I found a cousin in the Congo. So I'm making my connections, and soon I'm going to get over there to Sierra Leone, and we're going to do it upright.
That's right. That's right. Hopefully, you guys, I want to announce that we're organizing a Gullah tour. It's going to be in December. We're organizing the first Bridging the Atlantic tour. We want to start bringing our people over here for a couple of days every year, man. Start feeling the culture a little bit. And I think that because we're Gullah and we connect to every country in Central and West Africa and a couple in East Africa, that we have a ground for our own cultural diplomacy, that we can begin to reach out to these cultural ministries and seek to exchange and see how we connect and where we connect and start forming those relationships. It's very important that we are looking to connect with the whole of Africa and reconnect with all of our people. So it's a beautiful, beautiful process that we're in. In closing, Queen Mother, do you have any last words for us on this? I'll say Inikpi Day. Inikpi
Day, Princess Inikpi Day.
I'm not calling it Easter no more.
Oh, I understand.
Now, this is Inikpi Day, because if I need a symbol, my mother sacrificed. She was a sufferer, and she would have did that. My mom would have laid down in the grave for us. I know. So it's like, it's so personal. It has nothing to do with the name of the person or the people. It's the story that, I don't care what background you have. When you hear it, you understand how women also play a big role in sacrificing and serving their nations. It's so powerful coming from an African kingdom that we have restored connections with. So I really thank you and the Igala Nation of USA for stepping up, because we need more of that. And we need more of this too. So if you have any last words, please.
Well, I also want to continue to honor as I said in the beginning, our Ata. The Ata is also for king. And I think I saw our chiefess. We have a chiefess. She is also of the Igala leadership, the Abeneche. And I think I saw a comment by her. I also want to honor her and thank her for her presence here today, our chiefess and our priestess of the Igala Kingdom here in the United States. The International Decade of People of African Descent was something that the United Nations started almost 10 years ago. And our ambassador took it very, very seriously. The Ata at the time passed away, and the Igala Kingdom there started something to reconnect people in the diaspora as it related to this decade that was proclaimed by the United Nations. And it goes to 2024. I spoke with a representative and they said it may be that it really needs to go even further, because a lot of people weren't aware of it. And I once again give honor to the Ambassador Yegba, Your Excellency, for being here as well. Thank you so very much. So the Office of the Igala Reconnection is something spearheaded by our very own Ambassador Yegba as it relates to the king at the time, the Ata. He mentioned that this is something that needed to be taken seriously, this outreach. And I appreciate the chiefess, as she said, I believe this is our stepping stone. the Gullah Nation of North America, uniting with the Igala Kingdom to really make us aware of stories that are unaware of, you know, as it relates to the sacrifice of Princess Anipi, and to be proud, to be a proud people, that this kind of unity is something that's going to be enormous in bringing us together so that we can come one united Africa, as Marcus Garvey, our ancestor, spoke of, the one united Africa. And so this is a step. We definitely have to take a step. There are steps that have to be made somehow. You have to start somewhere. And so I'm so very grateful and so very honored to be this voice and be this communication between. I met the mayor of Sierra Leone.
Freetown.
Yes,
Yeah,
Freetown, Sierra Leone. Yes, because that's right, Mayor Yvonne. Yes, and I'm so grateful that now we've come full circle, that we're connected, and that we can definitely be this bridge, begin to be this bridge. I am in radio also, if people want to connect with me to, further this discussion in terms of learning more. It's about learning more. We just want people to be open to receiving our heritage and learning more about why that is so important, because there are people all over the world who are interested now in finding that root, getting back to that foundation. Who am I? That's a very important question. You've got to go back to the root, your source, to find out who you are, and so it's just so very important to me that we need to support organizations like yours, Chief, the Gullah Nation. We have to support that, because I heard a brother, Rizza Islam, he's with the Nation of Islam. He says, and powerful brother, right? You can attest to that, Baba. He says, we've got to put away the religious gangbanging.
Yes.
And
talk about it.
Because growing up as Jehovah's Witness, that's a whole nother story in itself. But we were taught to look down on Muslims. We were taught to fight them. We was on the corner in Brooklyn and Nostrand Avenue. We was speaking against the 5%ers and the Muslims at the time. We was going at it, as Jehovah's Witnesses, back and forth debating. But so we've got to put aside those differences and know we've got a common enemy. We've got a common oppressor who can no longer hold us down. He can no longer put his foot on our neck and say that there was no good thing that came from Africa. What could be further from the truth? We are powerful people. Our voices are now being recognized and noticed and heard, and we are going to continue to move forward together, arm in arm, and locked, and know that we have to understand and learn the history of our people, starting right in our own lines. That's the power of my grandmother and the things that she did. She was a widow young. She became a widow when my grandfather was tragically killed when he went to work one day. He didn't return home. He got into an accident with the Coast Guard and a bus that he was riding on. And he was the only one that died. But my grandmother, bless her heart, I stand on her shoulders. She had 4 young children. And as a young widow, she tenaciously, she continued to do what she had to do. She built houses. She got land for her children, for her grandchildren. And she did things that if you were in dire grief, she knew that she had to move on. So that strength, that tenacity that we have as people for our ancestors and their sacrifice, it is because of the blood, the sweat, and the tears of our ancestors that we are here and that we are alive and we are who we are today. So I just want to thank you once again, because this was an important piece to bridging. We have to start. And I know that there are many organizations that are doing things to bridge this, and we have to continue this. We have to continue to let our love for one another show through, and our love for our Africa, our Mama Africa, to continue to unite us and lift us back to our rightful positions.
Ashe. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mama.
Thank you.
So we're about to close out. This has been a good one. This has been a great show.
This has been excellent.
I haven't let go of the cola. My wife, I was sitting here getting ready, and my wife just put it in my hand. So I was like, okay, I just been holding on to it. Like, why did she get this to me? But I understand now, because it's a special day for our ancestors, and it means it's a special day for us. And anytime we come together to bring them together with us and share that with the people, it's a blessing. And can nothing negative come out of this, y'all. And as you said, we are nation building. We are claiming ourselves, and the root is the spirit. And we have to truly get back to our understanding of how that works and how we work with the spirit. Not in a religious sense, in no kind of way, just in a real human sense. Because the way that our ancestors connected with nature and applied their knowledge to their circumstances to keep us into existence. Do you realize how many lineages have been destroyed or no longer exist on this earth? But here we are. And so it goes back to the sacrifices of our fathers and our mothers for forever. We've always been, just like I'm sure we've all sacrificed for our own in this world as well. You know, we all grandparents, so we've definitely put in some work and some labor, and had the code switch here and there just to survive, to get something for the baby, and stay out of trouble, and all that matters because we wouldn't be living like that in our own place, under our own freedom. And our ancestors, they passed down how to be free despite it, and I think that this is a testament of it. Again, I want to just really appreciate the Igala Nation. You're here representing the complete totality of the nation that you have returned to, that have embraced you, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Right there in South Carolina, we got the Yoruba Nation right there. We got Oyotunji right there. And
honor to the Oyotunji.
Yeah. So we have to begin to, among us who are African-centered, among us who are Pan-Africanists, among those of us who are really trying to bridge this gap and get back to the continent, and really make this happen for us and the next generation and future generations, to form this unity. We need to form a single unity. It doesn't mean we have to compromise anything that we have. It just means that we have to begin to work together on common initiatives. I would love to also bring the ambassador on one day as well, and we're going to put Nazir in the lineup. And I love Sister Abenichi. She's dope. I had an opportunity to be here as well. So shout out to the full team. Love y'all. Y'all have a great week. Y'all have a great rest of the day. As we say, it's many roots, one fambo. We are Geechee without borders. We're everywhere you are, and we bring the solutions. We love y'all.
Reach out to us. If there's anything we can do, just reach out to us.
That's right.
Thank you, Chief. Bless you.
Peace.
All right.